Okay, guys, I am here with Isaiah Ware and his attorney, Neil Brand. I spoke with Neil for a bit yesterday to try to set this up. And Neil, thank you for doing that for us. This is obviously the case that we talked about a couple days ago, where the gentleman in the Kroger shopping center confronted another man in the shopping center, and there was a weapon drawn, and things took place after that. What we wanted to do is get a little bit more of the details, because a lot of you had comments and questions in the comment section of the original video, and I wanted to address that. And I wanted to, first of all, thank you, Isaiah and Neil, both of you guys, for agreeing to come on here, because I think this is enlightening for the Second Amendment community. A lot of things and a lot of times we look at certain situations, and because 99% of us will never be in a situation in our lives where we ever have to draw our firearm, everything is just supposition. We wonder what we would do in those types of situations. Well, obviously, Isaiah, you felt the need to be in that type of situation. So it's a little bit different element than what we probably are. I've never had to draw my weapon in self-defense. So that's why it's important for us to get your perspective of what you felt, what you thought, and why you made the decisions you did. So what I'd like to do, first of all, is welcome both of you gentlemen. Second, Isaiah, we're going to roll this video as you bring us through this.
Okay.
In the video that we're looking at it from the up top video, probably the more common video that everybody else is seeing, where Williams is coming from the right-hand side of the video, comes over to the left, and at that point, when you guys made eye contact or whatever, can you start there and take us through what was said, what transpired, anything that you felt like might have led to why you drew the firearm? But the conversation is probably the most important piece that we're looking at.
When I first made eye contact with him, the moment I looked him in his eyes and in his face, I could tell that he was looking for an altercation. He had this mean, grimace look on his face. And what he said to me, he said it in a real nasty tone, very aggressive. He said, "Why you in my way? Are you going to bump into me?" And I said, "My man, I'm not going to bump into you. Clearly, you're the one who approached me, walked up on me." He then tells me, "Go on, get up out of here before I knock you out." And I ignored that threat. I said, kind of like waved him off. I said, "Whatever." I stepped away from him to avoid an altercation. He then turns and says, "We can do whatever." Excuse my language. He calls me the N word. "I'll beat your ass and slam you to the ground." And he's coming towards me as he said that. Now, when he said it kind of loud, and like I said, he's moving towards me as he's saying it. And at that moment, I reacted and reached for my weapon to protect myself.
Okay, so let's hit the pause button right now on the video itself. What I want clarification on, because you're a CPL holder. So did you,
Yes.
in the state of Michigan, do you guys take a class to become certified or get your whatever, your
Yeah.
permit or whatever they call it? Do you have to go through a course to do that?
Yes. It's
Okay.
a prerequisite before you can obtain the license.
Okay. So I assume during that, and I don't know these facts. I'm not asking you something that I already know. I'm asking you because I don't. Do they teach you? I don't want to use the word restraint because that's more of an opinionated word. But you see what I'm saying? Do they teach you to de-escalate if you can? And do they teach you at what point, if you feel it's a threat, if the threat is ended at that point? Do they teach you things like that, as far as, hey, these are the reasons or the guidelines you would follow that would necessitate whether or not you were to draw your weapon?
Um, I wasn't taught that in the class that I attended, but I took it upon myself to try to avoid, like I said, an altercation or avoid someone getting hurt. Make no mistake about it, it was not my intentions to harm this man, not at all. It was my intentions to protect myself and keep him from hurting me.
No, I follow you. Tell me about then the type of training that you did receive to get your certification or your permit in the state of Michigan. What did that training or that course consist of?
Basically, the instructor took me to a gun range and we just practiced shooting for maybe about 45 minutes to an hour. And that was the training that I received.
So there's in Michigan, there's not a requirement for classroom training.
No.
Really? Okay,
Mm.
that's news. I didn't realize that. Louisiana, which is where I'm down here, there's gosh, I want to say you have upwards to an 8 hour course that you have to sit through, and then you go to the range and do your qualification there as far as live firing.
Isaiah, I'm sure you sat in a room with somebody who was an expert to go over the rules, right? We're not talking about on the range shooting, but you.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. We did it at the range. It wasn't like a classroom atmosphere. We spoke. He went over the rules and regulations while we were at the range, and then we practiced shooting.
And
But there
that
were
was
chairs, right? There were chairs in a room, like a blackboard or a whiteboard, and you had a booklet and everything, right?
No.
Okay.
sounds like you have a different type of course or something like that. And so you this course took you about 45 minutes.
It took longer than that. We practiced shooting for about that length of
Probably
time.
okay.
But he instructed me on other things, as far as us speaking. So in total, we were there a couple hours.
Okay. And I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. I'm just trying to figure out the course of action that took place during the training, because I know that one of the things that I know they were pretty adamant about, and I've helped other people do the courses also. I'm actually certified to do the certification for concealed carry, and they push us really hard on the. And I know your guy probably mentioned this to you, but the last resort being that you draw your weapon. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? That's not the first thing. That's not your go-to. You know,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
should be what you resort to when you feel like you've exhausted every other option. And that's one of the things I wanted to make sure that we understood.
I honestly believe that's what I did by ignoring the first threat. I didn't, jump the gun and just pull a gun on him the moment he made a threat towards me, because like I said, had that been the case, I would have drew on him immediately.
Hmm.
I didn't even draw the gun after he made the second threat. I drew it once he made the threat and started moving towards me.
Well, and let's discuss that then, because you're bringing me to my next question. So there were two different, let's say, episodes of him threatening you. Then I assume the first one was when you guys were a little bit closer to one another,
Yes,
and then you kind of back away. And I
yes.
don't, I'm not looking at the video right now, but I will play this back while we're talking about it.
Okay.
It doesn't seem like he's on screen whenever you draw your weapon. So there's a good 10, 12 feet between y'all. You say he was coming at you. Is that off screen and we just don't see it? Because I
I
don't
think
see him coming at you.
you may be looking at it from a different angle. You may not have the proper scene,
Okay.
because there's several different clips in that surveillance video that shows it from different angles. So you may haven't seen it from the correct angle, but he definitely turns and comes towards me as he's making the second threat.
Neil, is there any way that I can get that clip that might show Williams going towards Isaiah? Because what
Uh,
I'm looking at, I'll tell you, the video that I have is kind of above that register where you checked out Isaiah.
yes,
That's the angle that I have, and that's the only angle that I have is, and he's
yeah,
like off screen to the left, and I don't see
yeah,
him during when you drew your weapon.
yeah. I seen it from that particular angle, but there are other angles on that surveillance video. So you just
Okay.
need to see it from the correct angle.
Okay.
I'll look through my Paul. I'll look through my videos again, and I'll forward you what. Maybe you're missing something. I'll forward it to you.
Yeah, yeah. Because I didn't see that, and I will say this: in fairness to me, what I, I'm looking at it based on what I have, and from I see you guys have the initial altercation where you're almost face to face,
Mm-hmm.
and then I see both of you guys kind of separate,
Mm-hmm.
and then I see you pause, and that's when you draw your weapon. Well, I don't, unless I missed it, and I may have missed it now, just in fairness, but I don't recall seeing him to the left. Maybe I was paying so much attention to you, I did not see him.
Paul, I
Um,
believe the video that you have demonstrates what Mr. Ware is saying. So it's to me, it's kind of interesting because if you look at the when you I know you have the news video where they have circles, and I believe that when you first see him go to draw, that that Mr. Williams, Kelvin Williams, is in fact in the screen. So
Okay.
Absolutely. As a
I
matter of
don't.
fact, I don't mean to interrupt, but he's in the screen and he's pointing his finger towards my face.
Wait. Okay. I'm actually going back. I assume you guys can still hear me okay, because I'm not in that program anymore. Let me, I'm dragging through your stuff now, and I will say this. I do see under the register number 10, like there's a sign up there. if I drag my cursor, yes, I do see a hand under there. I do not see what he's wearing, so I can't confirm that was him, obviously. But I do see a hand, like you said, Isaiah, coming down under the screen. So I do. If that's him, then yeah, I see where he's at now.
The man in yellow.
Right.
Well, I can't see him in yellow. Excuse me. All I see is like from his elbow forward, and it looks like he might be pointing at you. Like if you look directly, if what I'm looking at, if you look directly under that little cube that says number 10 for the register, then I see an arm come down at the very last minute, and it's simply from the elbow forward. So I assume that's what you're talking about. That was him in that's like his arm I'm looking at.
I
Yeah, I'm
can't
looking
see.
at the same video right now, and I exactly what you're talking about from under that number 10.
Mm-hmm.
That to me shows the threat.
Okay.
Looking at it again, if you look at the video from the news camera at 1 minute in the news story at 1 minute and 4 seconds, I believe that does show that he's making his way back towards Mr. Ware.
Okay. Like I said, I see the arm in my original video. So now I see how closely. Okay. So then that tells me there is a couple of seconds that pass. So it looks like you draw the weapon and his arm is pointing at you at the same time. So can you repeat again what he was saying right there, the second threat?
He said, "Nigga, I'll beat your ass and slam you to the ground."
All right. Now, I'm just curious. This is not something that I had written down. What are the other people in the store doing and saying at this point? Are they, I mean,
To be completely honest with you, no one said anything. I don't even think the majority of the people even noticed.
I
If
could
you look
tell.
if you look at the surveillance video, everybody is cool and calm and collected. No one's frightened. No one panicked. No one's screaming or yelling. The majority of them went right on ahead doing what they were doing.
Yeah. I'm curious what his reaction was since I don't see it necessarily on camera. When you drew your weapon, what did he do?
He backed off. He said,
Okay.
"Okay, chill out, chill out."
So, my question to you at this point, in your opinion, and just your opinion, do you feel like he would have caused you harm had you not drawn that weapon? What would have
Ab-
happened had you not drawn?
Absolutely. He would have attacked me.
Okay. All right. Now, I'm going to make you mad here. So, my question to you is after you walked off, why didn't you reholster your gun?
Because I was trying to keep my eye on him and get to a secure location where I could sit the other items that I had in my hand down and then get the holster off of my hip and put it back into the holster. I would like people to know and understand that I had two items in my other hand. I'm carrying some lasagna and a bottle of Windex that I was trying to purchase, and I got the gun in my other hand. So it would have been extremely difficult for me to be able to put it away without sitting something down to free up my other hand. And also, I'm trying to keep my eye on him at the same time to ensure that he doesn't attack me. If you look at the video, you see I'm clearly looking back as I'm walking away. And the reason I'm doing that, like I said, is I'm trying to, watch him. And once I felt like, we had enough distance in between us where he couldn't get to me and attack me or put his hands on me, that's when I proceeded to put the weapon away.
Okay. So where was he when you were still holding all the items in the gun? Where was he and what was he doing?
He had went to the service counter with his wife and he just stood there.
Looking at you?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, I will tell you that and I consider myself a super responsible gun owner. And I'm just giving you my opinion. It doesn't mean anything because you make your choices, I make mine. It doesn't mean that mine's right or wrong or yours is right or wrong. But I'm telling you, everything that I'm taught in any kind of certification or courses that I give or take or whatever, it's always that one set that you, for one thing, if that threat is present, that's at that point is where you're acknowledging, okay, you feel like your life is threatened. And I assume that's why you drew your weapon. If that threat is enough to where you're willing to go check out your items, I think the question has to be there. How much of a threat was it still at that point? And the reason why I'm saying this, I have a reason why I'm asking this, has nothing to do with the legality of it. It has everything to do with the safety of it. The flagging of the gun on everybody else in the store. Do you keep one in the chamber? Do you have one in the chamber in your gun?
Yes. What do you mean by flagging?
By the muzzle passing like that. You have your muzzle if you got one in the chamber, you've got one of the obviously the rules of having a firearm is knowing what your target is and being conscious of what your muzzle is pointing at, right?
Okay.
So
Go ahead.
go ahead. I'm sorry.
I don't mean to interrupt. I never pointed the weapon. It
I'm not saying
remained.
you pointed. I'm not saying
Yeah.
you pointed. Okay. If I have this pistol right here,
Mm-hmm.
obviously it's not loaded, right? Just want to make
Right.
sure we're clear on that. Okay. If for some reason it were loaded and I still had the magazine in it and there were a round in the chamber, if I put my hand in front of it, I just flag myself. I'm talking about it in terms of, again, not legality. I'm not talking about the courts or anything like that. I'm talking about as a responsible gun owner.
Mm-hmm.
We are always taught. In fact, most of us get this really funny feeling, even when we know a gun is unloaded, of putting our hand in front of it. It's just an awkward feeling.
Mm-hmm.
You don't, in fact, you get really mad when somebody else muzzles you. That's what we call muzzling. If somebody does this and the gun passes in front of you or over you, the muzzle does, we call it muzzling. When somebody does that, you get pretty upset, especially if you go to the range and do that. That's what I'm talking about. And this may go back to your training and all that. The guy that maybe did not stress that importance of that. But my assumption is when you went through your training, you got the four rules of having a gun, right? There's four
Yes.
rules of gun safety. Two of them would have been broken at that point. And I understand your situation. Again, I'm not talking about it from the legality standpoint. I'm talking about the muzzling of your own hand and your own body and potentially somebody else who I can't see off screen, but I know there are people to the other side over there. I know you're not pointing at them, is what I'm saying.
I never pointed the gun at all. Not at
No,
him.
I
Not at
know.
anyone.
I know that. That's obvious in the video. You kept it down at your side.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like I said, the only reason it wasn't put away maybe 4 or 5 seconds sooner than some people may think that I should have gotten it away is like I said, because I had items in my other hand. And I
Yeah.
was at the same time trying to keep my eye on this dude. There's
I'm
no
going to cut you off right there, and we may want to talk about this for a second. But I'll be very frank with you. If I had just feared for my life and drew my firearm, I wouldn't give a shit about Windex and lasagna. I'm just being really honest with you, bro. I would have dropped it on the floor and said, "This dude right here, that's my main problem."
that's just where my mind was right at that particular moment. Think it to be wise for me to get into a fist fight with this dude in the middle of the grocery store with a gun on my hip. He could have messed around and got a hold of my weapon and harmed me with it. I didn't know what he had on him or what he's capable of. And furthermore, with all due respect, I am not required to be sparring with anybody, like I said, in the middle of Kroger's.
Yeah.
By law, I'm not. Every action that I took falls up under the guidelines of Michigan CPL laws. There is no law that states that, you once you draw your weapon, it must be put away in 4.7 seconds. Not getting it put away as fast as some people may think that I should have got it put away does not justify me being charged with felonious assault. Not in the slightest.
I agree with you. That's why what we're talking about, we're not conducting court right now. We're just having a conversation about what happened, right? So
Yeah.
that's why nothing what we're talking about sends you to jail or sets you free. It's this is simply a conversation, and I agree with you that you're not required to do anything. I will say this, and again, I'm saying this with all due respect because I don't know you, and I don't know, how you conduct yourself normally or anything like that. I know that as gun owners, and I'm sure you feel the same way, when we have a gun on our hip, we do carry ourselves and hold ourselves to a much higher standard as the other average everyday guy. I would be willing to bet the first day that you put that gun on your hip, you acted different. I don't mean like a tough guy. I'm talking about more cautious, probably notice things more. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? You notice somebody behind you. I bet you if a guy at the grocery store or at a convenience store was behind you, I bet you noticed them. I bet you knew they were there. You felt them.
I've I've always been cautious long before I even had a license to carry. I'm just a cautious individual. I'm always paying attention to my surroundings. I want to make it clear that I am not someone who became belligerent or goes around looking to try to intimidate others or pick a fight because now I feel as if I'm a tough guy because I have a weapon on me. That's not who I am, not in the slightest. I had my license for probably well over a year and a half with no incidents, none whatsoever. So I'm not someone who just, as soon as I got my license, I immediately went out looking for trouble. You
Right.
understand what I'm saying?
Sure.
That's not me, not in the slightest. Had that guy never approached me and threatened me in the manner in which he did, that whole incident would have never taken place. Never. I would have never said a word to him. Absolutely nothing.
Did you ever during that, and I know things are happening fast. I know you're not able to process a lot of this stuff that fast sometimes when you're in that type of situation. Again, me not having been in one, it's easy for me to sit here and speculate what I would have done, right? So let's just say that. But did it ever cross your mind while this was happening, especially since there were two threats allegedly by Williams,
Mhm.
just not to even answer the guy and walk away?
Well, I thought that's what I was doing after he made the first threat. When he, threatened to knock me unconscious and knock me out the way he did, I stepped away from him. I said, whatever. Um, I don't think it's just or lawful for anyone to suggest that it's okay for him to make threats towards me, but if I, respond, then I'm the bad guy or I'm guilty of assault. That's not the law. That's not accurate. Um, like I said, I said, man, whatever. I stepped away. And when I stepped away, he turned and got loud and irate and aggressive, and he threatened me again and started to approach me while he was making that threat. So not only did he threaten me, excuse me, he's now coming towards me as if he's getting ready to make good on that threat. And I think anybody in that particular situation would have did the exact same thing, if not more. I don't mean to sound cruel, but I venture to say a lot of people probably would have shot him. You don't get to go up to people in public and start issuing threats, and then when they do what they need to do to protect and defend themselves, you get to go cry victim. That's not the way the law operates.
Yeah, I have different opinions on a lot of that. I do know that this would be a different conversation if you had actually shot the guy. And I
Oh,
think we all
absolutely.
know that.
Yeah, I'm sure that
Yeah.
I'm so thankful that I didn't have to, because once he saw the gun, he straightened up.
I
You
can
know what I
tell
mean?
you that as me, as a responsible gun owner, there's no way I would have shot him. No way I would have shot him.
I'm glad I didn't have to. I really am.
Yeah.
He's like I said, once I pulled it and he saw it, he stopped coming towards me.
Yeah.
And I felt like the threat had been diminished once he
Right.
backed off, so there was no need for me to shoot him.
Paul,
I
if I
would
could
just,
ask you a question.
sure.
As a responsible gun owner, this is just how my brain works because I'm also a responsible gun owner. How do you know that there's no way you would have shot him? And let me give you an example. What if he reaches down in his groceries and starts throwing cans of soup at you that
That
are
didn't
full?
happen. But that didn't
Oh,
happen.
okay, when you're saying there's no way, I thought you meant there was no escalation. That I
No,
misunderstood.
no, 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 no. Based on what the video shows and what Isaiah has described to me, Isaiah said that a lot of other people might have shot him. I'm saying I wouldn't have, not under the circumstances
Oh,
that I'm
yeah.
aware of. From what
Yeah.
None
I
of us.
saw and what I heard, there ain't no way I would have shot this man.
No,
Um.
Isaiah wouldn't have either, and I wouldn't have, and you would. I
Yeah,
understand.
yeah,
I
yeah.
apologize.
No, if he would have
There,
done, I mean, if he had started slinging canned goods at me, as much as I like chicken noodle soup, I doubt I would have been really cool with that.
there,
No.
there could have been other people that he may have frightened more than he frightened me. For instance, say it was an elderly person, an elderly woman, and he goes to threatening to knock this woman out and or slam her on the ground and kick her ass, and he really scared that woman, and she could have just reacted out of fear.
But y'all don't know each other, right? Or
No,
didn't?
I've never met him a day in my
Okay.
life.
He also didn't know that you were a licensed CPL holder.
No,
In
he
other
didn't.
words, for all I would have known, you're some guy pulling a gun on me. You follow what I'm saying? I mean, you guys, if y'all don't know each other, then y'all don't know at what threat level each one of them is at that point.
I'm
Is what?
some guy that you just walked up on and threatened twice.
Yeah,
What do you expect? You don't you should not do that. You don't go up to people out in public and start issuing threats. And like I said, and then when they respond to you or protect themselves, you get to say, "Hey, oh, he pulled a gun on me." Well, unfortunately, you got what you deserved,
yeah,
because you shouldn't have never targeted, approached, and threatened me in the first place.
yeah. No, and again, I'm on record for saying that I didn't think it was assault to begin with. I'm not going to back off what I'm saying about after the fact, just because how my mind works. if I had still felt threatened, and I'm not questioning you, because again, what you do and what I do is different things.
Mhm.
But if I felt like the threat was still there, you know what I would have been? I'd have had my Windex and lasagna on the floor. I'd have had my hand in my phone in one hand, calling 911, and I'd have still maybe had my gun unholstered if I've
Yeah,
still felt threatened.
yeah,
But I'm telling you what I would have done, or what I think I would have done. Again, I don't
There
have
you
that
go.
adrenaline dump,
Thank
so let me just say that I
That's-
everybody says what they would have done. I think this is what I would have done. I can't
Don't
guarantee
forget,
it.
I'm going to tell you, Mr. Ware, at the end of the day, it's 5 o'clock. He's hungry. He wants to get home. He doesn't want to be dealing with anything else. And his thought process is, I've ended the threat. I want to go home. So I
absolutely.
don't know.
Yeah.
As an attorney in court all the time, we hear, I would have done this. It's usually as a defense. And I don't think Mr. Ware's guilty, but I represent people that are guilty. And a lot of times they'll say something like, well, if I was going to steal that, then why did I pay for the other thing? Or if I was going to carjack this woman, then why didn't I wear a hood? And it's like, because you're an idiot,
Right.
not Mr. Ware. Because you're
Right.
stupid. And
Yeah.
that's why it's in this situation. And I think that it's so easy, and I'm going to tell this to the jury, it's so easy to say, well, what you would have done. But I tell you what, if this guy would have come after my mom in the way that he came after Mr. Ware, and he started to approach my mom, what if that would have caused my mom to become upset and possibly have a cardiac episode or something just
Mhm.
from that?
Yeah.
So I'll say this is the Kroger that my kids ride their bike to. It's the Kroger that after my son finishes hockey practice, he walks up to. I want Mr. Ware in that Kroger. I'm glad he was there for himself. And I believe if it was my kid, he probably would have done the same thing to protect my kid.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I felt once he backed off of me, I thought, and I felt the threat had been neutralized. I didn't see any need for me to contact the police. I always thought that, someone had to be hurt or, there had to be some type of physical contact for, the police to actually need to get involved. So that's the reason why I didn't make the call. I thought he would go his way and I would go mine, and that would be the end of it.
Now, Isaiah, not saying that anything you did was wrong, because again, I know you have an upcoming court case.
Mhm.
If this exact same situation happened today, how would you handle it? Any different, or what would you have done?
I would handle it differently, knowing that I would have to go through what it is I'm going through now.
What
Um,
would those things be? How would you have conducted it? Specifically, what would you have done differently?
I think I, I think I probably would have just fought him. I'm not sure if that's the right choice to make, but I think that's probably it. It may have worked out better than me having to deal with all of this. Even if I fought him, I still could have wound up being charged with assault.
Well,
So
look,
I would.
I have a suggestion.
What's
Maybe
that?
you might think I'm a candy ass, but did you ever
Right,
think about just walking
just
away and saying
walking
screw
away.
that guy?
Yeah, I did walk away the first time.
I'm talking
And
about walk away
you
and
mean leave
ignore the guy.
completely? Oh yeah,
No,
yeah.
ignore the dude. Just go on. Look, make another round. Maybe there's better lasagna on that aisle.
Yeah, I understand that, but to be completely honest with you, that feels a little bit too much like running to me, and
Man,
I don't, and I don't. That's not me.
sometimes you look, I'm gonna have to tell you this. Sometimes you got to check that ego, man.
I understand that.
Because
I
look at all
understand
this
that.
shit you got going on now, you
You're
know?
right.
He
You
didn't break
absolutely.
the law.
You're right. I agree. But
He can stand his ground.
Say
I
it
was
In our,
again,
taught
Neil.
in our state, it's right in the statute, and I can read it to you. He can stand his ground.
Yeah.
absolutely.
You're telling him again, Paul, I think you run a great program, and I think your book is incredible, and I think you're brilliant. But you keep moving away, and it's fine. It's your program. I think you keep moving away from the law. What you're saying is, how would I train? How would I want to be trained, or how would I train someone else in that scenario? Maybe. What I have to worry about is can the prosecutor prove beyond a reasonable doubt to a man who has a presumption of innocence that he broke a law? And there ain't no way that's going to happen, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
but you got to understand, you're approaching it from a legal standpoint. I'm simply approaching it from a Second Amendment guy that carries a gun every day. That's the
Sure.
conversation I'm having with him. Look, I hope Isaiah don't go to jail. What I'm telling you is that's got nothing to do with my conversation. I'm not trying to decide whether or not you were guilty. I'm looking at the situation as a responsible gun owner. And again, I do feel like we all hold ourselves. I mean, all three of us are we carry, right? All three of us, we all hold ourselves to a different standard. We know this. And I will tell you this. And again, one thing I do know, I feel like, let me go back to this. I feel like I would have said, this guy ain't worth it, because I seen the guy. I heard what he said in the after interview with the law enforcement officer with the body cam about slamming you to the ground and all that.
Mhm.
Clearly, he's got a screw loose, and I don't.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm just being honest with you. The dude seemed like it's not worth my time. And
Mhm.
like I said in my video when I analyzed this, the number one reason why me and Neil understand, it's got nothing to do with your court case. I'm talking about me as a person. My wife is at home and my son is at home. I don't give a shit about this loser over here that's threatening to slam me to the ground. I want to get my damn lasagna and Windex and get home and see my family and sleep in my bed that night, because there you were probably this close to spending the night in jail that night. You know what I mean? I
Well, I
mean,
did.
oh, you did?
Yes, I
They kept
did.
you in jail that night?
Yes,
That
yes.
blows my mind, man. I
Yeah.
can't believe that.
um, the way I was thinking at that time and in that moment, I honestly felt like, why should I have to run from this dude? I have just as much right to be here as he do, and there's no way that I should have to tuck my tail and scurry out of the store because he's got an attitude or whatever his
Yeah.
problem is. Whatever his problem is or was, I felt like he should keep it to himself. Don't come threatening me because you in a bad frame of mind, or you dealing with whatever it is you're dealing with. So I just didn't feel the need to run from him. I really didn't. And frankly, I'm not obligated by law to do so. As Attorney Neal said, Michigan is a stand your ground state, and I'm not required to flee.
Yeah. No, and I
I
agree.
understand where you coming from, though. You saying basically, if you can avoid all this trouble that I'm in now, it may be in your best interest to do so. And knowing what I know now, to be completely honest with you, I probably would have handled it the way you said handled it, and just got away from him. But at that time, I didn't feel like I needed to run from him.
It's
And like I said, I'm not required to do so.
I know, but you keep saying run. I'm gonna tell you right now, nobody in that store would have thought you were running from him. And I think everybody in that store would have probably applauded you if you just said, "Man, you ain't worth my time." I mean, I'm just being honest with you, because the guy seemed like a complete waste of time. And that's
Yeah,
just a few seconds I got to watch him on video. I'm
yeah.
sure he's going to be mad that if people are saying what they're saying. But I guess the police report, does it say that he threatened, like word for word, what you just told us? Is
No,
that in the police report?
no, it's not in the police report.
No.
Okay. So
There's
at what point does that need to come out? Does that come out in the court case, or when does that come out?
as an attorney, I bring that out in the court case. I believe it gives me an opportunity to challenge Mr. Williams, Mr. Kelvin Williams. I believe charging him with the crime sort of puts him on notice. I don't think they'll ever prosecute him. I'd rather get him on the witness stand and go through the police report and say, here's the video. Didn't you say this? What do you do for a living? And he's,
Yeah.
well, I'm a garbage man. Well, you said you were going to slam Mr. Ware to the ground like you do garbage cans. Let's go through that. Were you going to slam him on his head? Were you going to slam him on his
Yeah.
knee? Were you
Yeah.
going to slam him on his face? Were you going to kick him after? That's how I, as an attorney, try to win the case.
I would like people to take this into consideration. Why did this man want to slam me to the ground? We've never met. We didn't have an encounter. I, never said anything to him. What in the world would possess him to want to slam me and hurt me?
Well, I know
Clearly,
for
clearly, he's admitting on camera that he had intentions on hurting me, and the only thing that stopped him was the fact that I had my gun.
well,
Or
What's that, Neil?
he's asking a question with an easy answer.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, you're just simply a better looking man than him. He was probably jealous. I mean, I might slam you to the ground if I saw you. My woman might be in there, and I'm like, oh man, if my woman sees this guy, I'm
Yeah.
done with it. So that's
but
Well,
but I think it's quite clear and quite obvious that he had intentions on hurting me. I think anybody can take one look at that surveillance video and clearly see what took place. Even though there's no audio from what took place in the store, you can see who the aggressor is. You can see him come from all the way across the store, make a beeline straight towards me. You can see him pointing his finger in my face very aggressively. And like I said, most people, they're not stupid. They'll take a look at that and say, hey, that guy started that whole ordeal, and Mr. Ware was protecting himself. And I believe that justice will prevail.
well, I'm going to tell you that I don't know if you watched my video, but I feel like that what I saw on camera was not assault. That's just my personal opinion. I'm not saying I would have handled it the same way you did. I'm not saying I would have drawn my weapon, but nothing that I saw on that video led me to believe you should have been charged with assault. I'm no attorney, so that doesn't mean jack. So that doesn't mean anything to anybody because I mean I'm just giving you my opinion. But I don't, and I think most of my viewers, none of them saw that either. None of them saw that you should have been charged with assault. I think, in my opinion, the only things I saw that are question marks to me is, yes, I would have walked away. I'm sorry. You call me what you want. You can call it running if you want to, but I would not have encountered this guy. I'm a pretty decent judge of character, and I can tell when I'm dealing with a nut job right off the bat. And I think you were dealing with a nut job, seriously.
Yeah.
And, I would have, again, I'm an armchair quarterback this because we're closing up here. I do feel like I would have reholstered my gun or I would have kept it holstered until that guy left the store because I don't feel like threats, if it's enough of a threat to pull a gun on, they're very, very unsuspecting as far as you don't know. If you don't know what provoked them to begin with, I wouldn't have felt safe, me, until this guy was completely out of my sight because I don't know. You don't know what provoked him. Did you grab the
Absolutely.
last lasagna and he was looking for that too? I mean, seriously. I mean, we don't know what
Right.
pushed this guy.
Well, you can tell from this conversation, I hope, because I know I can, and I shouldn't tell anyone else what to think, but you should be able to tell that Mr. Weir is very eloquent in the way he speaks. He's very clear thinking. He's thought this through, that he's not speaking out of emotion, or he's clearly credible. So I think when I put that in front of a jury, they're going to say, even if they don't love the way he handled the gun, I think they're going to say that if somebody's got to be right and somebody's got to be wrong, I don't think they're going to come back and say that Mr. Weir is wrong here.
I agree with that. I totally agree with that.
Again, you never know with the jury.
If we're keeping score and somebody has to win and somebody has to lose, Isaiah should not lose. That's just my opinion. I mean, if we're going to put a 1 in somebody's column and a 0 in somebody else's, the 1 obviously for this type of situation, and based on the words you said, Isaiah, that he said to you, well, yeah, I mean, I'm not second guessing that. My whole thing is, you have to understand from an instructor standpoint, it's hammered into our heads that if it's something that we can de-escalate by just leaving, that's what we should do. I'm talking about gun owners whenever we're giving training to other people. And I don't know if that guy included that into your type of training or not, Isaiah, circling back to the training, but that's one thing that we're always taught. You can't, if I told my instructor who taught me this, I didn't want to seem like I was running, he would have laughed at me.
Well, like I said earlier, unfortunately, that's an opinionated view.
I agree.
I did step away from him, and I didn't feel the need to keep stepping at that particular moment. I felt like he was threatening me and trying to bully me and intimidate me, and I didn't like it. I really didn't. And like I said, what I did was not breaking the law. If I'd have known, once again, what I would have to go through, in the event that I did, if I would have repeat that same action, I probably would have took a different course of action at that time. But I didn't know that at the time. I honestly thought, with me being CPL, licensed to carry, and knowing the stipulations of the license, I thought I was well within my rights to defend myself.
One point I want to bring up that, and there are people that are saying what you're saying in our comment section too, by the way, of the video that I put out a couple of days ago. One of the questions was, well, kind of along the same line of what you said about sometimes it's difficult to reholster. What type of holster did you have? Because that was one of the questions that I was asked. Well, do you know what kind of holster he had?
That I don't know. I can't call it by name. To me, it's just a holster. It was on
describe it. Is it inside waistband, outside waistband? How do you carry? Or is it in your pocket?
It's outside waistband.
Outside waistband?
Yes.
No. It's not, is it? Inside, right? It's inside, right?
The metal clip is inside, but the weapon sits outside. Okay. So if you need to get to it, is easier. It's more accessible. If you need to draw it.
Is it cloth? Is it like made of the Kydex material like that, or is it a cloth?
Mine was cloth.
Cloth. Okay, so
Yes.
when you drew the weapon,
Yes.
the cloth might have collapsed a little bit, I guess. Harder to reinsert the.
Exactly, exactly. It's thin, and once you
Okay,
pull it out, it
it
becomes even
collapses.
thinner. Exactly.
Yeah,
So it's no way for you to just be able to just slide it right back in with
I follow
ease.
you.
You actually have to take it off your hip to get it, back into the holster, which is what you seen me do in the surveillance video.
Right,
Once I put it back into the holster, I put it back into my pocket because I was trying to get it out of sight as quickly as possible. I didn't even try to put it back on my hip. I was just trying to get it out of sight,
right.
so no one saw it. And once I did that, I got back in line and proceeded to finish paying for my items. I've heard so many people say, "Well, why didn't you leave the store?" or things of that nature, because I didn't see it as being necessary. And I honestly thought that had I left, it could have been looked at like I fled the scene in some way, shape, form, or fashion. And I didn't want that at all. So I didn't want it to come across like, hey, this guy drew a weapon and then took off, and that probably would have made things worse.
Yeah.
So I felt it would have been wise to just stand there and if the police were going to arrive, in which they did, to just face them and explain to them exactly what took place.
No, it sounds like everything you did after, especially after the fact, when engaging the law enforcement and stuff like that, that was all done right too. I mean, clearly it doesn't make it look like. And look, I mean, let's be honest here. I think that this is a point that has to be made when you do go to court, and I'm sure Neil will make this. When you get your CPL, that's a pretty extensive background check and screening process. You know
Yes.
what I mean? I mean,
Yes.
they don't just hand those out like Skittles.
No,
So
not at all. You can't have a record and
correct.
obtain one here in the state of Michigan.
That's correct. So, I mean, you do have that going for you also, that your background has already been run and
Yes.
you were what they call a legal concealed carry holder at that point.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, guys, I wish y'all luck. By the way, did you get to eat the lasagna? Did you?
No, I unfortunately I spent the night in jail.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Right.
And
So,
I bought a money order to pay a bill. That's what I was doing at that particular mall. I was at the service counter buying a money order, and they somehow managed to lose my money order. I don't know,
oh,
maybe it fell out of the bag or something like that when the police took it, but I didn't, I took a loss as far as that little money is concerned.
wow.
As far as the items go, I believe they gave me a refund at the store. They gave me the money back.
Okay.
So no, I didn't get a chance to
It's
eat the
funny on the
lasagna.
body
And
cam.
I
That's on
haven't
the
been
body
able to I haven't been able to go to Kroger's ever since this whole ordeal began. And so I haven't had a chance to get it since this has taken place. But the judge has just recently reduced my bond and reduced some of the stipulations of the bond. So now I'm able to go back into Kroger's, not that particular one, but I can go to another one and hopefully start back getting my lasagna again.
So real quick, how does that work then? You lost me on that as far as a bond goes. Like they forbade you from going back
Yeah,
into the
they
program?
forbid me from going into any Kroger's while the case is ongoing. But the judge has just recently reversed that and said okay, you can go back, just
Hmm,
stay away from that particular one where the incident took place.
I got you.
As of right now, hopefully once this is over and I'm vindicated, things will go back to normal and I can go to whichever one I choose to.
I got you.
Yeah.
You want me to send you the order just so you can see what it looks like?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
While we were talking, I forwarded you to the Discovery just so you can see what it looks like. I mean,
Okay. Yeah.
there's some of that in the real world. I mean, it's
Okay.
not the story isn't the way that I would tell the story, but
Yeah.
I know this probably doesn't help Mr. Ware, but this is what it might help Mr. Ware, but not in this conversation. This is what when at my kids' school on career day or things like that, and people say, "Why do you like being a lawyer?" And I like to be a lawyer because this is like the last pure venue in my mind that the rules mostly apply, make the argument, and truly nobody's changed the constitutionality of a jury is going to decide your fate. And we try to do our best to make whatever arguments we can make within the law to win the case. And so does the prosecutor. We're
Yeah.
all just trying to win the case.
I hear you. Well, guys, again, I wish you luck. Isaiah, wish you luck. Neil, looks like you're doing a good job. I'd love to talk to you guys after the case. I do feel like you're not going to get that. I don't think that charge is going to stick. I mean, I think that I don't know how you guys' court system is up there, but I know that I have a little bit of confidence in our court system down here. I know that juries can get tainted and depends on what pool you're pulling from. But I mean, obviously, guys have a little bit of input on that. So hopefully, you have some people that are fair minded that are on the jury up there.
Do you?
Thank you.
I wish somebody would cover the trial. I wish the trial was live. I'd love the country to see what's going on up here with gun rights.
Yeah, I would too, because I think the conversation is definitely going to get into the gun right issue. I would imagine during the court proceedings. I wish somebody would live stream that.
Yeah, that would be great.
All right, gentlemen. Isaiah, you got something?
I just wanted to say thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you giving me an open ear and being open-minded and listening to what it is I had to say. And I really appreciate it. Thank you much.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you coming on. Same with you, Neil. I appreciate you guys' time. I know y'all got better things to do, but I appreciate it.
No, we don't. I think you run a great program. Mr. Ware, you're a great client. You're very responsive, and I think we're a great team, and hopefully this works out the right way.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right.
God save the Queen, man.
I'm sorry, I thought this was America.
He's over.